There's something about that initial bond with a rescue dog that's a little different because they're coming back going, yeah, man, thanks. Whew, that was a close one. And you're like, you and me, kid, you and me.
This is Paw Print, an animal rescue community, episode 35. I'm Harold Ree.
And I'm Nancy Ree. Today's guest is the talented Michael O'Neill. Michael is the host of the Solopreneur Hour Podcast, a very popular and influential business podcast, and co-host of a new show with Hines Ward, the 2006 Super Bowl MVP and football great with the Pittsburgh Steelers.
And Michael is a diehard Steelers fan.
We're glad to speak to him about two rescue dogs, Jake and Dexter. If you want to learn more about Michael O'Neill, the Solopreneur Hour Podcast, and the Hines Ward Show, go to our show notes at thisispawprint.com/35. That's the number 35.
I am a podcaster, and I'm hoping this is what you want me to answer. And I have a show that I put on 3 days a week where I get to speak to other proudly unemployable people like myself. It's truly a true conversation. It's a hit record and hit stop, and whatever happens in between is what happens. And I think because it's a slightly different angle, and you might hear a lot of business or entrepreneurial shows that people seem to dig it. So I'm still doing it 2.5 years later, and almost 8 million downloads ago.
Now you're 400 episodes in. What have you learned, either about yourself or about podcasting over those 400 episodes?
The key to, I think, a lot of success in business is saying yes first. I could say that's a real common thread between the people that I've had on the show, which is if there's an opportunity, they say yes, and they figure out how to make it work. Whereas most average people, if you will, say maybe, and then they think of like 10 ways why they can't do something, like it's too much money or I don't have time or that kind of thing. So I think the successful people know that everything is figure-outable.
I love that. You're already launched, but give a little bit of a taste of your new show that you're co-hosting.
I have a new show with a former NFL player called Hines Ward, who won 2 Super Bowls with the Pittsburgh Steelers and a Super Bowl MVP. And then he would go on to retire and be the Dancing with the Stars champion. And then he went and became an Ironman triathlete. So he's really got a great entrepreneurial mind and was always a gritty, kind of slightly undersized receiver that really had to try hard. And I always loved that about him. He became my favorite player in the league. And fast forward, 12 years, and I'm co-hosting a show with him, which is bonkers. It's going really well. I will say we walked in with a 2 million social media advantage, which is helpful when you launch a show. You still got to go through the same processes, and you still have to put in the work, and you still have to build an audience. This is an audience that doesn't know anything about podcasting. So it wasn't quite as like, hey, we'll just put this thing up and we'll be getting 25,000 downloads an episode right away. Not the case. It's like we still have to work and still have to teach, just like you do, I think, with every kind of show, is you have to teach an audience how to find you and what to do once they have. But it's been fun. It's been really great to get a lot of insight from him and really just get to know him a little better. I'm regularly chatting with him now and having, quick text conversations, and it's sort of normal now. But I imagine there was a time not too long ago that would have been bonkers that he was texting me for something.
Why do you think Hines wants to do a podcast? What was it?
He didn't.
Yeah, interesting.
It wasn't him. It was his people. The deal is when you're a pro athlete, you've got a limited notoriety lifespan. We were at the Super Bowl earlier this year, and there's athletes that were literally on the cover of, Madden 2012 or something like that were getting summarily ignored walking around the place. Like,
sure.
It's their brand goes away so quickly. One of his guys is a podcast guy. And so he thought, man, if we started a show, that would really help perpetuate the brand. And I think it really does. It really is very helpful for that. So
what do you think was a connection to you? Was it more your show? Was it your Pittsburgh Steelers passion?
Well, they came through a buddy of mine, John Lee Dumas. You want a podcast? This is the dude you talk to. And of course, we're very close friends. And he approached me one day and just said, hey, this came out of the woodwork. Would you be interested? And I'm like, yeah, I guess I would be interested to, do something like this. And so, we chatted and sort of evolved through this thing. And somehow we ended up doing a show. And where I am now, it's like, I've got to deliver. It's not like I'm getting paid for it. We're not putting any money into the show. So the show sort of has to monetize on its own for anybody to make any money with it. So Right now it's a labor of love.
One thing that makes your Solopreneur Hour podcast so wonderful, you really do share a lot of your personal life. And one of the reasons why we're inviting you on our Animal Rescue podcast is maybe to talk a little bit about your own backstory, a little bit about how animals have been a part of that.
I've been a dog person forever. And I remember in 1995, I was living in Philadelphia, and I was late to this restaurant where I was working. I was trying to sneak in the back door, literally trying to sneak in the back door. I lived around the corner. It wasn't like I was, I had no excuse other than I was just late. There was a girl out back that had this English Springer Spaniel, and I thought they were cute. At the time, I was hardcore mountain bike racing. I was a big mountain bike racer, and I'd been looking for like an athletic dog that could kind of go on a ride with me. I thought it'd be cool. And I said, "Oh, is that an English Springer Spaniel? It's a cute dog." And she goes, "Yeah, do you like these?" I said, "Yeah, I love them. This is a great dog. Perfect, 50 pounds, super athletic dog." And she's like, "Well, this dog's son, Jake, was abused. He was the pick of the litter. He was abused by the people that had him, locked up outside, and firecrackers, like locked up outside, like in the winter, and like firecrackers, locked in a cage that he couldn't even stand up in. I mean, just really bad stuff." I said, "I'd like to meet him." And it took him 10 minutes to touch me, for me to let him touch him. And I said, "I'll take him." And so I took him. And that was the first. So we worked together, he and I, for many years. And then 2 or 3 months, he was the best dog ever. He was so great. Played fetch and super great guard dog. They're very protective. He was just so loyal, so amazing. And he was really athletic. And he tore his ACL, or so I thought, because he was limping really bad. And I said, "Oh, no." And so I went to this doctor. This guy was really nice. He kind of did it almost for free. He did the ACL surgery because he realized I didn't have any money at the time.
Yeah, and it ain't cheap, right?
No, it was like, I think it was like $1,300 or something at the time, which was cheap for now. He called me. I'll never forget this. He called me. I was at this company party from this place I was working. He said, I think Jake was 9 at the time, or maybe it just turned 10. He said, "So it's not his ACL. His ACL's not torn. He's got a tumor. You're going to have to come and say goodbye." Like, I thought I was picking him up to like go back to being athletic and chasing the ball together. And I went from that, and in one phone call, I had to go, and I ended up having to say goodbye to him that weekend. It was like Thursday, and then he was gone by Sunday. So it was awful.
What were you doing? I mean, you weren't podcasting at the time.
No, this is Boulder, Colorado,
Right.
like 2004, I think, at this time. That was the start of a very rough year for me. So I didn't have a dog for a while. And then I went on a date with this girl. It was a good first date. She brought a dog for me the second date. And I was like, "Oh, I didn't know I wanted a dog right now." Like, it was a Weimaraner puppy who was awful. His name was Ben. And he had I think she got him from like a farm, like a puppy mill kind of place.
Sure.
I think he had every intestinal parasite you can fit into an animal.
Yikes.
And I remember I spent $3,000 the first month that I had him trying to like get him cured. We never really got along, and I ended up giving him to the Weimaraner rescue that was in Denver, and he got adopted right away because he was a puppy still.
Why do you think this person you were dating suddenly decided? What was
She's cray. That's what crazy people do. They don't buy people. You don't buy people a dog, even if they love dogs.
Second date, perfect gift.
Second date, yeah, perfect time for a dog, for an 18-year commitment. Yeah, it was really interesting. It was an interesting choice on her part. And so I did that. I really needed some time. I wasn't fully healed yet. I really took the Jake thing hard. Jake was a cool dog. I had this one story of Jake where I was working on my bicycle in the garage, and he was always super loyal, super right next to me all the time. And I was really immersed in working on my car and head down. And then I kind of look up and he's not there. And I'm like, "Oh, crap." Because he would wander sometimes and just wander the neighborhood. So I said, "Oh, man, I got to go." And so I turned around to walk out the garage. I have a picture of this. He is sitting on the roof of my red Honda Civic hatchback, just sitting there, looking at me. He's sitting on the roof of my car inexplicably.
Right.
He's sitting on there. I have no idea. And so I'm like, "Dude, what are you doing? How did this happen?" But I think, as you know, the bond between a guy and a dog is maybe the strongest bond in the animal kingdom, I think.
You've shared your life story, everything from, you just have so many interests: drumming, BMX, Porsches. You have interest in watches. But one thing that, of course, is much more personal to you was everything from the death of your parents, breaking your collarbone, which coincidentally, I broke my collarbone a couple years ago.
Brutal.
Yeah, it's not fun. And I could definitely sympathize with you when you said, I had to punch out this podcast with the healing process, which aren't compatible.
That's right. I had 4 or 5 episodes in the can.
Oh, boy.
And I wanted to have like 11 or 12.
Right.
Like, well, I guess I'm launching.
Dexter, in so many ways, was a link, not just for you, but really for the audience to that personal story. So
I don't think the bond could be bigger. So I held out until I was ready. I didn't know I was going to be ready. And I woke up one day and I was ready. I woke up and I had a friend visiting me from Chicago. And I remember just looking over and saying, this could be the day. And I grabbed my laptop, which happened to be right next to my bed, surprisingly. And I jumped on, I think it's called petfinder.com.
Yep. Pet Finder is very popular with animal rescue folks.
I just went and I was in Boulder, Colorado. I looked at the local shelter and I see this super cute Aussie cattle dog mix. And his name was Speckles. And I said, that is what a cool looking dog. And so I went over there and I wanted to see him. And they said, well, we're closed for renovation or something today. They're walking him. I said, can you just bring him out just to see? And so they brought this super cute, he's 10 weeks old and just adorable, little, razor sharp teeth as they have when they're that young and stuff. He was already really smart, I could tell. They said, do you want to put a deposit on him? Someone already has a deposit on him. They said, well, but if it falls off, if they don't pick him up, you can be next in line. I said, no, I won't. I'm going to leave this to the universe. I'm just going to see if this is supposed to be my dog. And so I called back later that night at like 6:00. And they said, yeah, not only did he not get picked up, but he's discounted. They took $90 off of his adoption fee. And because the paperwork that was filled out, made him sort of a problem dog. And I said, okay. And so I went there. It was between him and this pit bull lab puppy that was super cute too. And I threw the ball to both of them and Dexter brought the ball right back. And I was like, all right, that's my boy. So, but his name was Speckles. And I said, Speckles, we have to have a conversation because if you ever expect that I will ever see a naked woman again, we have to change your name. It can't be Speckles anymore. So we talked about it. He was okay with it. And we went with Dexter because I was in the middle of season 1 of Dexter.
Which was a very good season of Dexter, by the way. But.
It was, one of the 4 good seasons of Dexter. And so I brought him home and they were like, it was so funny. I still have it. I still have the original dissertation on what it was. And the entire thing, 2 pages of incidents and things that Dexter did. And the entire thing could have been summed up in 3 words. He's a puppy. That could have been the entire thing.
Right.
Because it was all stuff that puppies do. They didn't have common sense enough to go, this is what they poop on things, and they don't listen yet because they're babies. They're little babies. Give them a minute to get used to the world. I got him and he was brilliant. I had him crated for a little while and I have a very amusing uncrating story. So he was in this crate for, I don't know, maybe a month or 2 while he was just growing up and I was getting him. When I say that, I mean, when I left, I'd put him in a crate and it was his little house, it was a big one. My roommate, Dave, was a super healthy eater. And every day he would make the same meal. He'd make rice, grilled chicken, and broccoli. That was his meal pretty much every single night.
Scary, but okay.
Yeah. And he had this big 20-pound bag of rice that he would, real rice that he would just take from. And he'd put it in a rice cooker. Earlier in the day, I had experimented and I said, okay, I'm going to try to leave Dex out of the crate when I leave. And I left for 6 hours, I think, actually. I think I left for 6 hours. Came back, everything was fine. I let him out. He did his thing. And I said, great, we're in, kid. We got this, And so that night, I don't remember what I was celebrating, but myself and my 2 roommates, Dave and Ryan, went out. And I came back to my house, which I owned in Boulder, all hardwood floors downstairs in the first floor. I walked into a sea of white. And when I tell you that Dexter did not miss a square inch of that floor, he must have taken that bag and done that move where they just shake it, trying to break its neck or whatever you do when you're a dog, and just spread that rice perfectly around. So I came home to a white floor mixed with some poop and some pee. And
wow.
That's what I was, and he was just like, what's up, man? How you doing? I walked in and I was like, that is thorough. That was a thorough job, Dexter. I mean, I don't know. When I moved out years later, there was still rice behind my speakers in the home theater area of the room. Like it was,
wow.
He did not leave. There was no stone was left unturned.
Almost sounds like an exhibit at Museum of Modern Art, right? You cover the floor with rice.
It was pro quality. He did not leave an inch, and I was very impressed by it. It took me like 3 hours to clean it the next day. So yeah, we weren't quite there yet. But Dexter was so much smarter than me. He was so intuitive as many dogs can be. He knew when to play and he knew when to bring it. He knew when to be a dog, and kind of do his thing. And he had things he would do that I had nothing to do with. Like he would, I'm a very autonomous dad, so I didn't leash him a bunch. He was always right on me, and then we would cross the street, and I'd say, wait, and then a car would go by, and I'd say, okay. And he would just run across the street, and stop on the other side and be ready. If we were playing ball, and that's one of the main things, he was a frisbee dog and a ball dog, which is great because it's like remote control exercise. If the ball would bounce in the street, he would stop dead at the curb and watch it bounce down the street. He would not run into the street after the ball. And that, at least once, that I can guarantee, because I watched it happen, saved his life. We were walking on the sidewalk, going to the park, and the ball hit a crack in the sidewalk and just went sideways right into the street. And he sort of leaped after it and then stopped. And then the ball got nailed by a garbage truck that was speeding at 45 miles an hour down the street. I mean, it hit right in the middle of the grill. He would have been just pasted by this truck.
Not good. Yeah.
No, it would not have worked out well for him. He was a dog I was so proud of because I moved to San Diego with him and played frisbee and football, and American football. There's always, especially with Hines, a good receiver will go over the middle. They'll go over the middle to catch the ball, and they'll usually get pasted by the safety because it's the scariest part of football. When I would throw the ball to Dexter into the ocean, he would leap after the frisbee. He would leap after the frisbee, and sometimes the bottom of his feet would get tagged by the waves. It would just completely upend him and tumble him in the air, and he would always hang on to it. I'm like, dude, totally going over the middle. Totally got it. I've been around dogs my whole life, but he was a very, very special soul within the dog world. He was up there. And so when I was traveling last year, he was diagnosed with lymphoma. I was doing a guy named Chris Ducker has a mastermind called Tropical Think Tank, and he brings 8 speakers in from all over the world, and I was one of the 8. And I said, well, gosh, I'm already on the other side of the world. I might as well hang out. So I did a month in Southeast Asia while I was there. And that's when I found out Dex had, I think he had fleas or something. He got some fleas, and my friend who was watching him took him to the vet to take care of the fleas. And then when she palpitated his lymph nodes, she said, wow, this field seems weird. And then, it turns out that he had lymphoma. So it was awful. I did my best. I fought the good fight. We went every Monday and went to chemo. He kept going through, looked very promising at the beginning, and then it just really fired back in a big way. So far in my life, it was my worst loss. Right. It was probably 10 times worse than losing my parents, which sounds weird, but I think any dog person can understand.
Sure. How many weeks did you and Dexter fight?
$1,000 a week. So I can tell you we fought for 22 weeks.
Oof.
I know that well. I know that number in my head pretty well because it was all right, another Monday, another grand, another Monday, another grand. Yeah, it was about that. And then it was the day after my birthday last year that I had to take him in. And it was I had a birthday party scheduled, previously. And I was like, I'm not, there's no way I'm in the mood for this party. So we ended up postponing my birthday by a month. And then I had some really cool things. Some of the listeners did some really amazing things for me. They made, one of them made me one of those little stuffed dogs that it's the real likeness of your dog.
I remember you described it. I mean, it's pretty accurate, right?
Oh, it's him. It's for sure, it's him. And then another one did this really cool thing where she folded the pages of a book. And when you open the book and you display it, you see paw prints, which is really cool. And then another one, really, really, if anybody's, there's probably obviously a lot of dog people here. Another guy did a pencil drawing. It is unbelievable. It's so accurate.
And this is his side hustle, right? This is not his regular job. He's doing other things.
Todd Walton Artist is what it is. Yeah. If you go to that site, Dexter is 1, 2, 3. He's the 4th, as of today, as of April, whatever this is. He's the 4th picture down. I was blown away by it. Absolutely blown away by how accurate. And it was just, I got home and I was like, you guys want me to just sit here and cry all day? I'll do that if you want. If that's really what you want, I will. It was amazing. So, and I'm sort of right now in this, I'm getting close. I'm getting close again, I think. right now I've got some stuff to do with my house. My landlord's working on some stuff. Right. So once that's done, it's like steps. They've got to work on some steps. And so once that's done, I'll probably start seriously looking again.
Yeah. Have you kind of thought like what kind of dog?
Pretty open. My parameters are generally like I want a dog. So I want at least a 50-pound dog, and I want it to be athletic and smart. I think this time I may do the. I'm curious about your take on it. I might do the cool like obstacle courses and stuff.
The agility.
Yeah, like agility
yeah,
stuff. I think that looks kind of fun.
I think you can do that with so many different dogs. Now, I will say I'm totally biased right now because we just did this thing called Greyhound Week. 4 consecutive episodes of Greyhound, fans and all that good stuff. And I'll tell you, I've never had a Greyhound. I've never rescued a Greyhound. After you meet these 4 people, I'm thinking to myself, my next dog has to be a Greyhound now. But
wow.
Once again, it doesn't have to be a Greyhound. But what's awesome about them is that they're what they call the 40-mile-per-hour couch potato. So you think that you have to walk them all day long. You actually don't. You give them one good walk a day, they'll be fine. The rest of the day, they're just hanging out. And because they're used to the racetracks forcing them into these tiny little cages, they actually love living in small apartments or big houses. So they're fine either way. How do folks find you, whether it's online, social media? What's your preferred way?
Through the website. They can contact me that way.
Solohour.com, correct?
That's right. Yep. Because no one can spell preneur.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
My quick story is you're literally the second podcast I ever listened to. The first podcast was Cliff Ravenscraft.
Really?
Literally because I just Googled podcast answer, and of course podcast answer man came up, and he was having an interview with Michael Stelzner.
Sure.
This is literally probably like a little over 2 years ago, so it was right when you were starting out. And Cliff Ravenscraft said a word that I'd never heard of before, and it was solopreneur. And I'm thinking to myself, literally driving my car, I'm like, okay, I know what an entrepreneur is. What the heck is a solopreneur? Like I was almost like kind of laughing, like
right.
He just made that word up, right? That's not a real word. And of course, what do? I go into iTunes, type in solopreneur, and up pops up the Solopreneur Hour podcast. So all I remember is Cliff Ravenscraft and Michael O'Neill, and that's it. It's like after the memory gets very fuzzy.
That's because you then, you were over to the dark side. You became a podcaster.
Yeah, that's right. I was talking to Michael O'Neill, host of the Solopreneur Hour podcast, co-host of the Hines Ward Show. When you think about Dexter, what comes to mind?
I suppose the cliches, it's the love and loyalty, the first thing that comes to mind. Dexter was about subtlety. He picked up on cues that I don't know that were very apparent to the rest of us. He was so intuitive. He was such an intuitive dog. And so, yeah, he was very subtle in that way. And so if there was a way to truly define love or truly define friend, that's what I think of with him. I think it's such a selfless love that dogs give us. Or I was going to say any pets, but that's not the case. Dogs, for sure. It's so selfless, and they don't know the difference. So I think he really embodied that for me.
If anybody asks you, hey, Michael, why should I look at an animal rescue dog? What would you say?
Win-win, baby. It's like if you can do something great for another soul, another soul that's occupying this world, then that's what you should do. It's there's something about it. There's something about that initial bond, I think, with a rescue dog that's a little different because they're coming back going, yeah, man, thanks. Whew, that was a close one. And you're like, you and me, kid, you and me, we got this together, There is a bond with a rescue dog that that you did something great for this soul. And I feel like somehow they know and they appreciate it.
We want to say thank you to Michael O'Neill for sharing his story. If you want to learn more about Michael O'Neill, including the wonderful gifts that he received in honor of Dexter, go to our show notes at thisispawprint.com/35. If you'd like to nominate someone to be a guest on the Paw Print Animal Rescue podcast, you can email us at thisispawprint@gmail.com or go to our contact page at thisispawprint.com/contact. You can find us on social media, Facebook, Instagram, or Twitter. Look for This Is Paw Print, all one word. If you want to listen to other episodes of Paw Print, you can find us on iTunes, SoundCloud, Stitcher, or Overcast. As we mentioned on episode 34 with Eric O'Gray, if you'd like to submit your animal rescue story to mutualrescue.org, the deadline is Saturday, April 30th. We want to say thank you to all of you for sharing your story. And we want to welcome listeners in Kansas City, Missouri, Coeur d'Alene, Idaho, and Ellicott City, Maryland. You spread a positive message of love and peace by saving an animal. Have a great day, everyone, and see you next time on Paw Print.
Paw Print is a production of EVER Education.
You can't handle the truth.
Woohoo!